So today's message is, what is life? I went back and I looked at two of the slides that I had used recently, and I changed it up a little bit because I felt like God wanted me to maybe drill down a little more. And then I get here today, and Don begins to teach this morning about taking the next step. And it was perfect for where I'm going with this message. So, Don, I thank you for preparing those that were here. And
I got it.
Praise the Lord. When we ask the question, what is life? Most try to answer that question by examining or explaining their own life. It is all we know about life. The problem is we begin to compare our worldly life with what we see around us. Most often what we are seeing is only what we think we are missing out on, and we think, this is not fair. Yes, it's not fair to us or to God. What you see when you examine another person's life from the outside is not really reality. You can only see their outside, and you have no idea what is really going on the inside of that person's mind. The question is, are they really happy? There are a lot of people out in the world that on Friday and Saturday nights are in bars, and they are trying to act happy as they can be. And they are miserable. Most of them are probably drinking because they want to forget about life. Some of us are walking around with pain in our life, but we have a mask on our face that is saying everything is just great. As Christians, we don't need the mask. We're supposed to be who we are. If we're hurting, it's okay. If we have a problem, we need to talk about it. Where else can you go where you can lay out who you are and be just you? You see, it shouldn't be that we have to come to church with a mask on. Everything should be great no matter what, really. If you are a Christian, this is what the Bible teaches us. Everything's supposed to be great in God. So you aren't Paul. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So all things work together for your good. You believe that, right?
Amen.
I have heard different people try and explain why this verse doesn't mean what it means. They try and say, well, not all things. No, all things. I don't think there's anything that's really hard to understand about this verse. There's no big words in there you can't understand, so let's just read it one more time. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God. Oh, there's a catch. You gotta love God. That's the tricky part there. Okay. To those who are called according to his purpose. Oh, there's a second catch there. Let's go on. Philippians 2:14. Do all things without complaining and disputing. Golly, can we really do that in a church? We'll go on. Philippians 3:8. Yet indeed I also count all things lost for the excellence of the knowledge of Christ, Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered. Oh, we don't like that word. For whom I have suffered the loss of all things. Juliana tomorrow is supposed to be teaching chapel at her school. One of the things she's been thinking about is about how we are supposed to be content with what we have. For whom I have suffered the loss of all things. When my kids were little, we bought these little videos. And at first I thought, you know, they're nice little cartoons about the Bible, and they're really neat, but God, they're expensive. I paid for a couple of them, and I said, you know, I don't make that much money. I'm canceling this order. And then I saw the one on Paul. And it touched me. I sat there as I watched that little cartoon, and I began to cry. When I realized in this little cartoon about what Paul really went through. Oh, it's one thing to read it, but it just seemed to be coming alive to me in this cartoon. This guy walked and walked and walked and went everywhere to tell people about Jesus. And I don't think there were sidewalks where he was going. He gave up everything because he knew the message that he had was worth everything. By the way, I ended up buying all those videos. For whom I have suffered the loss of all things. It's not about what you have in this world. The world wants to tell you it's all about the things you have. The Bible teaches it's about what Jesus can give you. You count them all as rubbish that I might gain Christ. You count the world as rubbish so that you might have Christ. So let's be real here. We are not Peter, Paul, or John. We're just people. Where are we in all of this? There are some in the churches that like to think that they are Peter or Paul or John. And I leave that up to God to decide whether or not they're right. I just have to watch my own steps and be the best pastor that I can be through God's power. I tell you, it's tough getting up here. I have to depend on God. My favorite verse, John 15:5, where Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. That's life. We can do nothing unless we have the power of God living within us. We'll never be happy. We'll never find our purpose. We will never, ever, ever feel like we amount to anything until we allow Jesus Christ to come in and be who he wants to be within us. And it's more than just salvation. Yes, we are humans wanting the best in life. Some people just want a job. Just a job. But we want the best in life, and that's understandable. God works with us right where we are. Some of us want to be super spiritual beings, but we fall short at times. So what do we do with life? Question is, how do we make it better? Let's examine the circle of life. No, I'm not talking about the Disney cartoon, The Lion King, okay? The circle of life. I remember going to the movies, and it was the first time Thomas had ever been to the big screen. And they came on with Lion King, that music, and Thomas stood in my lap and he goes, and he just stood there pointing. And it was like for the longest time, and all of a sudden he turned to me and he went, oh, oh. He's grown up a little bit since then. No, I'm talking about the real circle of life. You see, we have the okay times. We have the good times, being the peaks in our life. We have the bad times, which, could be our valleys. And we kind of have the normal, maybe maintaining life that happens. But there's something here. It's supposed to work. Oh, go back. Come on. This worked at home. There we go. Life is always moving. It doesn't stand still. It's always moving. Life is always on the move. The funny thing about us humans is that if life stays the same too long, we begin to think something's wrong. So it's a good thing that life moves. It's a good thing. Otherwise, we get bored. I just finished a vacation. Well, I was ready to go back to work. I had too much time off. I was ready to go back to work. Well, then I finished out the week. I'm ready for more vacation. Why? Because the flesh can never satisfy our spiritual being. We will never be satisfied in and of ourselves. It's impossible. We will always find fault in our flesh, and it often causes us not to like who we are. I don't care who you are. If you begin to examine your life, you're going to find something in there you don't like. There is a trick to get around this problem, however. Are you ready? Look at those around you. If you do it right, you will find so many problems with them that you don't have enough time to see your own problems. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't really be doing that. Just maybe we should focus on how bad we are. And yes, I did say bad. If you really think that things are bad enough, you will begin to do something about it. It's interesting how you see people that are struggling in life and you want to help them, but you got to be careful, because if you reach in, you may just be enabling them to be that person for a long, long time that they don't need to be. Sometimes you have to allow them to hit the bottom. It doesn't mean you don't help. It doesn't mean you're not there for them. But be careful in how you do it. If there's someone that's involved in drugs, be careful, because what you're doing to help them may very well be what enables them to continue in that situation. You've got to pull back and say, I love you, but I'm not doing it anymore. Because I love you. It's hard. It's tough love. God has given us the power to change. I once heard a person speaking on the fact that it's impossible for people to change. And when I first heard that, I said, no, that's impossible. Because I knew God had changed me. And then I realized, no, they're right. It is impossible for you to